Rajyog, Pranam Mantra. Om Namah Shri Yatirajaya Vivekananda Suray Sache Sukha Swarupaya Swami Tapaharine. We are in the third section, deals with power. And the chapter began with a discussion on Dharana, Dhyan, Samadhi. Essentially, these are three layers of concentration. Normally, when we gain knowledge of some subject, it is through contemplation. It's through contemplative silence that we gain knowledge. But to gain deeper knowledge, as we shall see, we require much deeper level of contemplation. And when we get into this deeper level of contemplation, there are stages known as Dharana, Dhyan, Samadhi. We'll come back to it. Now, before we get to that subject, just let me point out a fundamental difference between Yoga philosophy and Vedanta philosophy. Those of you who are interested in Indian spiritual traditions, Hindu system of thought, and those of you who have been listening particularly to Inspire Talk series, you will naturally be fascinated by Vedanta. Vedanta is very fascinating. Yoga is the practical aspect of Vedanta. That is spiritual practices, you can say. Sadhana, the spiritual practices, have two aspects, internal and external. Yoga belongs to the external one. However, when yoga is taken as a complete philosophy, complete way of life, complete way of realization, then there are certain fundamental differences between Vedanta and yoga, which every serious student of Vedanta and yoga should know. And even for a student of Vedanta, it's important that he or she knows. Now, when you start studying Vedanta, or rather, when you want to practice Vedanta, because people listen to Vedanta talks, but practicing Vedanta is very difficult because, for example, in Mundak Upanishad, it is said that Pariksha Lokan Karmachitan Brahmano. Think of all the good things that can come to you in different spheres of existence. Forget about earth. As you can see, we get so easily tempted by very small things of our life, very small things. We get swayed by the smallest of disturbance. Here comes Corona, and see how we are all talking day and night only about Corona. We are so scared of death. Not me, of course, not me. And I'm sure that many of you are definitely not scared of this. In general, do you think that these people are fit to listen to Vedanta or to practice Vedanta? No. You're not even able to laugh at your life. You're not able to laugh at your death. And you think you can go for Vedanta. We have such likes and dislikes when it comes to matters of food, relationships, friendship. And we think that we will practice Vedanta. No, it's not possible. Pariksha Lokan Karmachitan Brahmano. Just think. Think of what good things the entire spheres of existence have to offer. And you say, I don't want any one of these. The problem is when we say that we don't want heaven, we are not even conscious of, we have absolutely no idea of what the world has to offer, what the heavens have to offer. And that is why we say we don't want. Just look at your present level of existence. Look at a common man. He is more worried about his promotion. He's more worried about perks. He's more worried about some raise in the salary. How can these people talk about not caring for the heavens? Similarly, when you come to, say, Gita, where it says, Anityam asukham lokam himam prapya bhajaswamang. This world, it has nothing permanent to offer. There's no happiness here. You first realize it, be convinced of it, and then prapyamang. Imam prapya bhajaswamang. Come, come to me, Lord Krishna says. Now, have you realized that state? No, you have not. If you study Vedanta Sar, which is one of the introductory books to Vedanta, it says, who can study Vedanta? One, Tapta Shirovat, who feels that his head is on fire. You say that, God, I am on fire. I need to save myself. This world appears to you like a burning hell. Now, dear viewers, right now there are not many viewers. I ask you with all humility, all care, all love, and all respect, do you really feel like that? I personally know some of the viewers here, they keep on talking big about not caring for this and that, and yet they are swayed by the smallest problem. So they can say that, well, these small problems, they are superficial, they don't touch their inner being. May that be. But you never know. You have never been into a situation where things are really deep. So, the very approach of Vedanta is different. Vedanta says that first, you need to have some idea about what this world has to offer, what other spheres have to offer, and then say, really, I don't want any of these. To give you an example, let me talk about myself. When I first became a monk, I suddenly had that feeling of freedom. I've never looked back in my life. To me, only important thing in life for me is my organization, Ramakrishna Mission. Because without this, I will be completely ruined and destroyed. Well, it provides me with a protective atmosphere. It's a protection for my growth. Outside that, nothing matters to me. And my organization, the role of my organization is to lead me towards freedom. Nothing else matters. I have friends. I have close friends. Never attached to anyone. One of my friends said that, look, I talk to you and then realize that nothing enters your subconscious. So true. Nothing enters my subconscious. No. Not that I try for it. It just does not. There's no question of my wanting anything in this universe, in any sphere. However, the desire, I don't want anything, that does not mean that I'll become free. This is just the first step. So these three that I mentioned, from Mundaka Upanishad, Pariksha Lokan, or Anityam Asukam, or Tapta Shirovat, they say that this is the starting point. For me, this is the starting point. And then sadhana begins. Spiritual practices begin after this. It is easy to talk big. Sri Ramakrishna used to say, if you want to play tabla, you can speak out those tal, those beats easily. But when you try to bring out those on the instrument, percussion, it's not that easy. So, now most people who are listening to these kind of talks, and there are so many seminars going on, so many preachers, actually, nearly all of them, I won't say everyone, nearly, they are not fit for Vedanta. Yoga is different. Yoga is meant for the inquisitive. You say that you are interested in the world, you still want to enjoy the world, fair enough, nothing wrong with it. You want powers. You want to rule over others. Most people I know, I find that they're so aggressively desirous of having power. Me, and me alone. Raja Yoga doesn't have any objection to these things. In the beginning, of course, because as you start progressing, these things will automatically drop. And if they do not drop, you will get stuck up. We are just discussing the initial steps, first things. So, what yoga does is it explains to you the nature of the mind. It also explains to you the nature of world, and then shows how essentially every sphere that you can think of is just phases of matter. Mind is also a phase of matter. So essentially, mind and this world that you see, that is apparent subject. I don't mean subject of Vedanta, but me as I understand, and the world the way I understand, there is no essential difference. There is no difference between this pen and my mind that gets the knowledge of this pen. And from there, slowly moves to show that actually matter transforms. Matter is never steady about its nature. Matter is continuously changing. And so mind is also continuously changing. And because mind gets the knowledge of matter, if mind is continuously changing, you can never know the nature of matter. And till you can know the nature of matter, you cannot be a master of it. Knowledge is power. This is something we have been repeating again and again. Knowledge is power. So to have knowledge of something, when I was in class 9 or 10, we had to study internal combustion engines. Those of you who have studied like how petrol engine works, diesel engine works, you will know that there were 4-stroke engines and 2-stroke engine and all that, particularly 4-stroke engine. Even at that age, I wondered that we can understand the burning of coal. Well, coal is burning and there is steam. Actually, there is no fundamental difference between external combustion engine and internal combustion engine. In external combustion engine, it's the steam. And in case of internal, it's the firepower of the diesel. However, I used to wonder that, see, the engineers who came up with this idea of internal combustion engine, how perceptive they must have been. That you need to burn petrol in such a way that its burning is controlled, and because of that piston moves. How he might have succeeded? Through a contemplative mind. If you read the biographies of mathematicians, if you read the biographies of scientists, you will see that they were contemplative by nature. Why? Because matter is in a constant state of transformation. Mind is also in a constant state of transformation. Now, if both are in a constant state of transformation, one cannot know the other. Mind cannot know matter. So, mind needs to be steadied. This is what we have been discussing since the previous 2 talks. I say that there is dharana, dhyan, samadhi. Actually, Patanjali has been talking about matter only. Even when he is talking about dharana, dhyan, samadhi, what he says that there is an object. Think of a flower. Flower is an object. And flower carries certain impressions about it. That is, it has some inner structure. And then there is finally flower, the idea. This is something we have been discussing since chapter 1, when we discussed savitarka, savichar, etc. kinds of samadhi. Now, when you are focusing on the external, you get one kind of knowledge. When you focus on its impressions, that is, the subtle nature of the flower, you get a different kind of knowledge. And when you go to the essence, the idea, your knowledge will be entirely different. Now, from there, Patanjali comes to mind and says that there are parinam, there are different kinds of transformation of the mind too, where he's talking about vyutthan, and then he talks about ekagrata. Sorry, niruddha samadhi and ekagrata. Sorry, niruddha samadhi ekagrata, where you are struggling to control, and there is near control, and there is a continuous flow of control. Essentially, is a control of the transformation of your mind. You cannot change the transformation of the external world. You can control your own. And in the beginning, it was said that dharana, dhyan, samadhi combined is known as sanyam. So ultimately, there is a link between sanyam and this transformation, parinam. This is where our Sutra 16 begins with. So Patanjali initially described what sanyam is, dharana, dhyan, samadhi, and he described what is transformation of matter. And he also explains that mind is also undergoing transformation. Now, when you can convert this transformation to your advantage, the very successful salespersons, boat persons, sailors, they can use any kind of wind to their advantage. They know how they can fix the angle of the sails so that they can go against the wind too. Power has to be there. Mind is in constant motion. You only need to give it some channel. You can channelize it to that extent where it gets converted into sanyam. That is dharana, dhyan, samadhi taken together. Now you have sanyam. And you know how transformation takes place. That is parinam. That means there is object, there are impressions, and there is the idea. Sanyam essentially means that you can take your mind to that level of concentration where your mind will become instantly one with the idea. Here is the pen. My eyes look at this pen. My mind gets the idea of the pen. If I think very deeply as the scientists think, I can come up with some brilliant ideas. The way computer people keep coming up with newer programs. I may come up with a very beautiful idea about pen. But if my mind is so focused that dharana, dhyan, samadhi has become one, and from becoming one, it is now sanyam. That means my mind can become one with the penness, the idea of pen, in an instant. Every transformation that has been taking over this pen will now become exposed. Because you have reached the essence of the object. So the powerful mind, that is mind of a yogi, can go to any object of knowledge. It can be anything. And can instantly become one with the idea of that particular thing. What are those ideas? We shall see one after another. And it's a very fascinating thing. It's about powers. How a yogi gets powers. Power over everything. And this is where yoga and Vedanta differ. Vedanta says that don't even look at those things. If there is this penness, pen has, Acharya Shankar will say two. But if you want to understand from the standpoint of yoga, it has three realities. There is pen, there is penness, the prototype, the template of all the pens, from which all the pens have evolved. And finally, the idea of pen is isness, the true existence. So we have three. First, there is pure existence. This pure existence is God. Then there is the transformation of existence into the idea of pen. The first state of transformation. This is Shabda Brahma. That means God thinks, let there be pen, and there was pen. And then there is this external pen. What yoga says that focus on this pen, reach to the idea of pen. Now you will have a complete mastery of over all the pens in the world. Now in the world, this is power. If you remain stuck up with it, you will be distracted, but you will have powers minded. And from there, you need to give up that idea and move over to pure isness, as Vedanta says. But Vedanta will say that don't even look at those things. Focus straight on isness, because otherwise you will get distracted. I hope my ideas are clear to you. When Vedanta says, Vedanta will say pen is. Pen is the object, and the isness, astitva, satta, sheer existence, pure existence. That is the reality, and goal of my life is to get established on that pure existence. Pen is a material. What is pen? It is just wave of name and form. So, why this pen and this microphone? These are different. These are different because God willed that let there be pen. God willed that let there be microphone. But don't you worry about it. You may not be interested. Because pariksha lokan karma chitan brahmana, that's not your tendency. You want power. You want to enjoy. You want to have some kind of superiority over others. And that is where yoga steps in. Says, yes, you can have power. Because in between this idea of pen, which is, the pen, the object, and isness, that is God, there is another state which is penness. You can reach that state and you will have all the powers. What kind of powers? We shall be discussing just now. So, but Patanjali cautions that these can be very dangerous. They can trap you. They're like black holes. They can trap you. You will have all the powers. And powers have come over the object by the mind. And since objects themselves transform and mind transforms, a time will come when you will fall from that state. So no use running after powers. So when Vedanta says that in the very beginning you need to fix this idea that these are all useless, yoga gives you one more chance or one more step. That way you can have some idea about what this world is. When you have tasted the powers, when you have known what is what, then you can say, I don't want any of these. Or as they say in English, to hell with all this. I hope I have made the idea very clear how exactly mind works, how objects work, and how mind works on the object, and how the powers come. With this we begin. Parinam traya sanyamat atit anagata jnanam. Now this mind, which is so powerful as to have sanyam, the mind becomes instantly one with the essence of the object. Here is the pen. Now my mind becomes one with the idea of pen. Naturally, it will get all the knowledge of transformation that have taken place on the idea of pen. The idea of pen as that might have been in the mind of God, the universal pen, the ideal pen, whatever that might mean. Because unless you contemplate, you will not understand whatever I am explaining. 2 talks earlier, I had given you the example of Orhan Pamuk's novel, My Name is Red, and there was that discussion on idea of horse. What is that perfect horse? from which all other horses have evolved? What is that pen from which all other pens have evolved? Now, if your mind in an instant can get identified with that penness, then you will know every past of this pen and every future of this pen, of every other pen, and of pen as an object. You will know all its past and future, everything. This is a fundamental rule. And from this fundamental rule, we shall be progressing to see how powers come to a yogi. Swamiji explains very beautifully that Swami says we must not lose sight of the first definition of Sanyam, and then he goes, if a man in that state wants to know the past and future, he has to make a Sanyam on the changes in the sanskaras. There is penness, and pen gets certain impressions and becomes an individualized pen. If you focus your mind on those transformations, you will know its past and future. So wherever there is some kind of transformation, God is beyond transformation. When you focus your mind only on God, you become one with it. Then mind cannot know God. Your mind, being a changeable entity, can know only the changeable objects. If it is not changeable, that is, when mind wants to know the pure existence, the isness, there is no transformation there. So mind becomes one with that. Because mind becomes one with it, it cannot know. Mind can never know God. It can only be one with God. It applies itself to the transformation. It knows transformation in its entirety, past, present, future. How? This is Sutra number 16 that I explained. From there we come to Sutra number 17, which is say a long sutra, but its meaning is very simple. Shabd artha pratyanam iteretar adhyasat sankarah tat prabhibhag sanyamat sarva bhuta utakyanam. It's a very long sutra. Actually, Patanjali Sutras are self-explanatory, unlike Vedanta Sutras. So, if you can understand the meaning of the words given in the sutra, you know what it means to say. There is nothing esoteric about it. There is nothing secret about it. It says, by making sanyam on word, meaning, and knowledge, which are orderly confused, comes the knowledge of all animal sounds. Do you want to know what an animal is talking? Do you want to know what a bird is talking? Do you want to know what a bee is talking? Do you want to know what a flower is talking? You can know it very easily. How? You only have to apply your sanyam on the transformations, that is, on the word. And it says, Shabd Arth Pratyanam Itretar Adhyasat Sankara. Sankara is Dantasa. Sankara is mixture. Under normal condition, what happens? There's a word, there's a sensation. It is carried by our nerve currents. And when it reaches the mind, it carries its meaning. And finally, mind throws a reactive wave to it. That reactive wave is knowledge. We have discussed this in one of our earlier talks. In the very beginning, it must be in talk number 2, 3, etc. Rajyog talk 2, 3. Shabda is impression of any kind through 5 senses. It carries a meaning. It has a significance. When I say pen is a word. Pen is also a significance. When it reaches my mind, if I already know what pen is, my mind throws a reaction. And throws a reaction, that reaction is knowledge. That's pen. If I don't know pen, then it kind of pigeonholes that knowledge into the area of the unknown. And when next time again pen comes, it tags it there. So that's how the knowledge base grows. Now, how do we converse? I have seen many times, of course, you people would be knowing this much better than I know. I've seen many times young babies, maybe 8 months, 10 months old, they when they speak, they'll simply say like that, and mom understands everything. And it's an amazing sight. Even the father, papa, he cannot understand, only mom understands. Baby cries, mom knows. Once I'll never forget that scene. Once one family had come to me and they were blessed with a baby girl. The entire family was there. And they wanted me to take the baby in my arms. I took, and baby started crying. Now I got scared. I'm not habituated to these things. And the grandma immediately says, "Oh, baby wants to sleep." I could not understand. She instantly says, baby was crying. See, because I am not accustomed to these things, I thought the baby is scared. Grandma instantly, no, she wants to sleep. And she took the baby, patted it, and in a minute or two, she was fast asleep. I'm still amazed how she could understand. And those of you who have been in family, you will know it very well. Moms can understand instantly. Why? Because the two minds are connected. Mind of the mom, mind of the baby is connected. As the baby grows, it gets a separate identity. And as his or her identity keeps differing from mom, it becomes more and more difficult for the mom to know what the baby is thinking. But that connect is never permanently lost. And that's why when the baby is in pain, mom knows. I have seen it many times with, grown up persons. What exactly happens? First, there is an idea. Supposing I want a pen, there's that idea. And then a word is formed. A word is formed. It gets a little more gross. And finally, there is expression. So, what is the difference between my words and the words of a dog? I get food and I say, it's food. I essentially see the food. That sensation goes to mind. It creates a meaning and finally it creates a knowledge. Same process takes place with the mind of a dog too. Only expression is different. My expression is different. The dog's expression is different. But the idea of food is common in the mind of the dog and in me. Now, the idea of food first gets a word and then gets an expression. Shabda Arth Gyan. There's the word, there's the impression, and there's the knowledge. So this is transformation essentially. If your mind is very powerful, if you have acquired that sanyam, you apply your mind to this transformation related to sound. And you will know what the birds are talking, what the animals are talking. Sri Ramakrishna has very clearly said there was a state when he could understand everything that the animals were saying and the birds were saying. There is a very famous episode in the life of Assisi, father of Assisi, Saint Assisi, Francis. He was about to deliver a sermon in the church, and there were sparrows, they were making sound. So Saint Francis Just turn towards them and say, Sister Sparrows, I'm talking about God. Please keep quiet. And all these sparrows became silent. St. Francis, he delivered his talk maybe for an hour or so. When the talk was over, he turned towards them and says, Sisters, my talk is over. Now you can chirp. And they started chirping instantly. I don't know how true this story is, but why should anyone make up such stories? Because for us, for the Hindus, these are most normal things. Yogis can know what animals are talking. Trainers also know. Trainers understand what the animal under their training, under their charge, want at a particular moment. They can make out from their sound whether that particular animal is hungry or is fearing some attack or is in an attacking mode. But here, yogi, he doesn't think of those things. He can very clearly know what words are being spoken inside the mind of that particular animal, and so they understand. So, yogis actually do not focus on the barks, they focus on the transformation. I sincerely hope that the idea is clear. Just remember that there are three states of vibrations, three states of these impressions that come to us. The general term is shabda. Shabda is sound. But all five kinds of impressions that come to us, they are shabda. They carry an idea about them. And finally, there's that knowledge. Seen from the opposite side, there's the idea, there's the impression, and finally there is the expression. Yogis focus on the transformation. They can know. So if a yogi wants, he can understand any language. He will not be able to speak, mind it. For example, there was Swami Vivekananda. And supposing he, as we know, he had encounters with French people, German people, Spanish people. He won't be able to speak Spanish or German. But if he applied his mind to people who were speaking that language, he would understand. Because the ideas are getting external body, and from their completely external form, when they come to us as spoken words. Yogis focus on the transformation and know what they want to say. This is the first power that Patanjali describes. And then he goes on describing powers. These are phenomenal. I mean, Sanskar sakshat karnat purva jati jnanam. By perceiving the impression comes the knowledge of the past life. Do you want to know about past life? You know, people keep on asking, is there rebirth? Of course there is rebirth. Can you know your past life? Of course you can know your past life. How? Because whatever you do, whatever you speak, whatever you think, leaves an impression in your mind. This is known as karmasha, which we have explained earlier. Now this karmasha itself is again transforming, being a part of the mind, it is getting transformed. And that's how I behave. For example, supposing I am talking to you, whatever I studied in the past, for example, I was talking about St. Francis of Assisi. I read this story years and years ago. Now I am talking, suddenly it popped up. Tomorrow, if I am delivering this talk, some other example will pop up. Why? Those things are there as dormant impressions. Over births, information will go away, only the impressions will remain. When we die, most of our informations are left behind. We move on with the impressions. In the next birth, there are more and more of information. With that information, some impressions are deposited, some impressions work out. Now here is a yogi. He has that power of Sanyam. He applies that Sanyam on himself, on the inner working of his mind, the transformation of his own impression, sanskara, that has made him what he is. He knows his past, he knows his present, he knows his future. If you look at the lives of all the great prophets, for example, Jesus, biography of Jesus is so fascinating. He chose the most common people as his disciples. Why? He could see their past, present, and future. Sri Ramakrishna, just look at his 16 disciples. There's a strange combination. So there was Swami Adbhutananda, Latu Maharaj, who was completely illiterate, coming from the lowest strata of the society of that period. And Sri Ramakrishna could see, of course, that would be described. Present, past, and future. And a yogi can see that about themselves. Here, it is about themselves. Later, Patanjali will be talking about others. So when you focus your mind on your own impressions, you will get the knowledge of your past birth and also future. Because as far as essence is concerned, for it there is no past, present, and future. They are mere transformation. Is there any way to know it without being a yogi? Yes, there is. I am sure you would be curious. You get some inkling of your past, some inkling of your future. Inkling, the word is inkling, slightest of hint during your dreams. Because during your dreams, your soul is in a different state. And at times you get some idea, some inkling from your previous births. And of course, you cannot tell for sure when exactly that happened. That's why you see, modern psychology is not able to explain dreams, but we understand. Dreams are very vivid imagination in the state of sleep. But for imagination also, we require some reality. What is that reality? That reality actually comes from the past impressions. Those past impressions are not only from this birth, they are also from the past birth. If you go on analyzing your dreams, if you try to think of your dream, you'll get some idea of what your past was. And those dreams will also say what your future is. I was once mentioning, when I had joined, that was more than 40 years ago. Sometimes, I had come from the society. Sometimes I used to dream. I am about to get married. And just before I was to enter that hall, marriage hall, something happened, I ran away from there. And my sleep used to break. I used to feel so relieved, so happy. Oh my God. I was hardly 21, 22 at that time. The last such dream I got was maybe around 25 or so. Shows your mental tendencies. This is what Freudian psychology will say. It's also a pointer to your past, a pointer to your future. But if you're a yogi who can apply Sanyama, he'll very clearly know what your past was, what your present is, what your future will be. Very clearly, not dream-like. What I said about dream, That's not mentioned in Patanjali. I just added it from my side that dreams that you see, they are not actually that meaningless. They have some meaning. They are not only about your aspirations, they are not only about your fears, they are also some about your past and your future. Swamiji says, if the yogi can make a sanyam on these past impressions of the mind, and from there, this is something I love. Sutra number 19. Pratyasa para chitta jnanam. If you focus on the sign in another's body, knowledge of his mind comes. This is a very fascinating thing. Look at someone's body. I love it. I love doing it. This studying the mind of others is my favorite hobby, favorite pastime, favorite hobby. And I always intently look at a person. Whenever I meet someone for the first time, I intently look at that person's face and eyes and nose and ears and chin and body and try to understand, make of that person's mind. Why? How they are related. We have earlier discussed that the impressions that are there in your mind, according to the impressions means sanskar, technical term is sanskar, karmashaya. You get your body according to that. I remember once I had seen someone and I looked at that person, I got so scared. I felt as if this person has been born straight from a ghost world. That person's eyes and very looks, they were not frightening. So I had that feeling, my God, he seems to have come straight from the ghost world. Now, you may not agree to this, and it does not matter with me. It's my impression. And see, I have never once, I'm not boasting, never once have I failed in reading a person's mind. Never. I see a person, talk to him for 5 minutes. I know if this person is honest, if this person is dishonest, if this person is going to create this kind. I know. Even then, I get hit by people because by nature I'm very compassionate. When I see some kind of problem, I can understand. I mean, it's not so difficult. It's really not difficult. And Sri Ramakrishna used to say Keshab Chandra Sen. Keshab Chandra Sen's Brahma Samaj got split. Sri Ramakrishna says that you don't look at the signs of the person and you make wrong disciples. That is why you have to, there's a split in your organization. Sri Ramakrishna used to very carefully look at the signs of the body. And sometimes, if needed, he would even ask the person to remove his clothes just to see what kind of body he had. Because your body very clearly tells, it screams, it shouts what kind of mind you have, rather what you are. Patanjali very clearly says, Pratyasya parachitta jnanam. If you just look at the signs of the body, not you, I mean yogi, he applies his sanyam. You have to have a very focused mind. Just by looking at the signs of the body, you can tell what kind of person he is, he or she is. So Swami says, sanyam on the signs, he knows the nature of the mind of that person. General nature. You cannot go on telling what is the past of that person and future of the general nature of that person. This is something I find very fascinating. I never made a mistake. And you might have those things. Even novelists like Agatha Christie, she very often she describes this. And these rich and learned ladies, they have this, their pastime, reading in newspaper columns about horoscope and about what signs, what kind of fingers you have, what your nails speak about you. They are not absolutely wrong, they're partly correct. Patanjali is not talking about, Patanjali is talking about applying that focused mind on the signs of the body, and you know the nature of the mind. Not if you have any disease or anything, nature of the mind. Nachatat salambanam tasya vishayi bhutatvat. But you will not know the content of that mind. Because if you want to know the content of what that person is thinking, then you need to apply two different kinds of sanyam. First sanyam is on the signs of the body through which you know the constitution of that mind. And then you apply on the transformation of that person's mind, then you know what he's thinking. Sri Ramakrishna used to know very clearly. Now see, this is something this is quite obvious, You're sitting with two or four friends of yours, and you find that a person is slightly absent-minded. And you make out instantly, why are you absent-minded? You watch people taking food, and you can feel that person is absent-minded. That means something is going on that person's mind. So even we know, without applying Sanyama, is very common sense, that when there is the grossest form of manifestation, even we know that person is absent-minded. You look at the face of your baby, I mean child, 7-year, 8-year, 9-year-old kid. He returns from the school and just look at the face, and mom knows what kind of mischief he committed. Or if he had a good day, or if he had a bad day, you can make out. Your face reflects. But that is a very gross expression. Here, what is being discussed is at the deeper level. What? You apply that sanyam. Sanyam we expressed earlier. On the transformation in the mind, I know what he's thinking. And he cannot cheat you, mind it. May you know. Because your mind has become one with his mind. So there is no way that it can be cheated. What he is thinking is in your mind. Sometimes you will see even close friends, when they are into common action, someone is thinking something and suddenly the other one says, are you thinking what I am thinking? He will say, yes. Ultimately, every mind is joined. Because every mind is joined. If you have been friends for a great time, and if you are doing the same kind of work, so naturally there will be a phase. And because there will be a phase, you know each other's mind. You will see that husband and wife, they know each other's mind very well. When the wife is thinking of something, husband realizes. Same with the wife. Why? They have stayed together for so long, and their minds have moved in phase for so long that you know simultaneously what the other person is thinking. If you have a very close friend, you will see you send some message from your side, and when the other one is also sending you the message. When I was a kid, I had a relative lady. I was a kid and I had seen her, and suddenly I felt like talking to her after maybe 40 years. The last 2-3 months, I was thinking about her, how she is, and all. I contacted somebody who might be knowing her. She was elder to me by 10-15 years. I had seen her when I was a kid. And then I was informed that she passed away 2-3 months ago, exactly from the period that I had been thinking of her for so long. So, somehow your mind catches. And if your mind is free, as your mind is free, it will be catching those things more and more. But here we are talking of much more serious things, whose mind is focused, Sanyam identifies with the transformation in an instant. Kaya Roop Sanyamat Tad Graya Shakti Stambe Chakshu Prakasha Sanyoge Antardhanam. Swamiji explains this by making Sanyam on the form of the body, the perceptibility of the form being obstructed, and the power of manifestation in the being separated, the yogi's body becomes unseen. See, sutra itself is complicated, and Swamiji is true to the sutra, so you cannot understand unless you read the explanation. Here you are looking at my body. Actually, you don't look at my body. You are looking at the material that has made this body. So body has actually two components. One is my form, the subtle body, the form, and there is matter added to it. And matter is continuously changing, as you know, like the kind of food you take changes your body. The thoughts that you have changes your body. If you take less food, your body becomes of one kind. If you take more food, your body becomes of a different kind. So body is continuously changing. And behind it, there is the form. So there is a form of the body and there is the external body. So there is a junction. There is a junction where the external body and the form meets. These two meet. Now, if you apply Sanyam there, then there is a complete disjointing of these two. To make it easy, as if the molecules that are there in the body, they get disintegrated. Temporarily, mind it. Actually, they don't get disintegrated. Swamiji explains it as when we perceive something. For example, when you are looking at me, you're looking at the matter that makes my body. What yogi does is, when he's somewhere, supposing even if he's in the crowd, he can obstruct your vision from reaching the junction of the form and the body. Normally what happens, see, yogi's form will always remain. Yogi can do nothing about his form, and he has a body, that body will also remain. However, there is a transformation which is related to form and the external body. If he applies his mind to this junction of form and the body, they kind of get separated. And he becomes unseen. It is as if sometimes you might see in movies, etc., they show that some body is kind of disintegrating. Particularly because of this computer technology, it has become very easy to show something disintegrating. So as if disintegrates, and yet the form remains. It says that by making Sanyam on the form of the body, that is my form, the perceptibility of the form being obstructed, the form that is coming, it gets obstructed. And the power of manifestation in the I being separated. So there is a complete separation. So there are different ways to explain. One is that there is some kind of separation. Simply, Swamiji says, a yogi standing in the midst of this room can apparently vanish. He does not really vanish, but he will not be seen by anyone. Why? The form and the body are, as it were, separated. He applies his power, so body as if, the molecules of the body as if get separated from the form temporarily. Actually, it appears to be separated. And similarly says, Etena Shabd Adi Antardhanam Uktam. I don't know, because I've never seen these things. I have no idea. Somebody is speaking something. And yogi says, stop. He can go on speaking, he will feel he's speaking, but his words will not be heard because the thoughts and the words, they are connected. There's a junction. And the yogi applies Sanyam. Because he applies Sanyam, he can cut at the junction. So even if the person is speaking, his words will not be heard by anyone. So supposing, sometimes jokingly I think, when some political leader is delivering a speech, a yogi goes and says, stop. So he can go on speaking, he can go on speaking. No one will be able to hear a word. They will think that there is a microphone problem. But no, he may go on speaking, but words will not come out of his mouth. Why? Because there will be a complete severance, breaking down of the link between the ideas and words. And not only ideas and words, this can be applied to every kind of junction between the idea and expression. Sopakramam, nirupakramam cha karma, tat sanyamad, aparant jnanam aristebhyo va. Arist is experienced at the time of death. Say, a normal person, when he's about to die, he starts having certain kinds of visions. So, for example, says that his ears cannot hear the inner voice. Even if he's talking, he cannot hear himself. Inner ears get stopped. And when he closes his eye, normally when we close our eyes, we can see our inner self. You cannot see your inner self. This is a sign that this person is dying. And that is when he starts seeing Yamraj and all. So, when a yogi applies his Sanyam on this arist, these signs of death, death is also a kind of transformation. He can know exactly when he will die. So, Sri Ramakrishna, when he had his Mahasamadhi just before that, he asked somebody to read the almanac. And 15th August night, that is 16th August, he stopped. He said, okay, leave it. And he gave up his body on that day. Same with Swamiji. Swamiji also did the same. Yogis know when they are going to give up their body, when their body is going to go away. So these are some of the powers that we discussed. And now comes more gross powers. He says, how you can get tremendous strength, tremendous intelligence, etc. We'll take up that in the next talk. Thank you.